Welcome back everyone, it's that time again. It's time to find out what classes are bursting into Koresh with their heads held high, in which we'll be walking the Walk of Shame. And to be honest with you, I'm almost tempted to change my main based on what's in this video, because, well, there's actually a lot more winners than losers this patch, and that's kind of becoming the Blizzard standard, which is nice. Unfortunately though, loads of specs are coming in completely untouched or with changes so minor it's not worth mentioning, so if I don't mention your class today, honestly, it's probably because bigger things are coming in midnight. But if your class is here, good news. Well, it's probably good news. More than anything, one class is a winner, and that is the Death Knight. And the flagship spec of this patch, at least in terms of number of changes and fun factor, is DK. Both Frost and Unholy are getting substantial changes. They're pretty great, but they do come with one major asterisk, which we'll get into. But first, Frost. Frost DK kind of got rebuilt from the ground up. So first, they streamlined everything, really. Remorseless Winter is merged with Pillar of Frost. Death and Decay is out of your DPS rotation, and Empower Rune Weapon has become an on-demand resource boost instead of a major cooldown. So that's basically 3 buttons simplified already. Here is the centerpiece, and it's been a long time coming, Breath of Sindragosa. Now this used to drain all of your runic power, and the gameplay involved extending it as long as was humanly possible. Some people really liked that. It tickled their tism. I was sometimes like that, but many people did hate it. Now, the way it works is it extends through your procs, right? So your rhymes and your killing machines will extend it, which basically means same fantasy, half the headache, and a 90-second cooldown that will let it sync up with every second Pillar of Frost. And overall, I'd say that's great. It's more understandable than the old version, but it's that without removing the skill ceiling, because maximizing those procs still does take work. There's other things as well though. New capstones are pushing some hard burst windows. We've got Killing Streak, stacking multiple killing machines for an escalating crit and haste. Icy Onslaught is real cool though. It ramps your RP spender damage and cost, which basically means you can dump your resources fast. That actually feels real good. And even Rhyme is improved. It actually procs from all RP spenders in order to prevent overcapping. So that's a lot of nice stuff, but it does get better because AoE has got massive attention for Frost DKs. Glacial Advance is now baseline, and that does mean that your single target builds aren't completely helpless in AoE. Then Frost Scythe has become a true AoE obliterate with all of the talent hooks that you would expect. Howling Blast has gained multiple talent hooks, meaning it can kind of hit like a beast now. And then the new Frostbane capstone replaces Frost Strike in AoE, and what's key is that it pops Shattering Blade, so that basically means in AoE you don't need to do lots of fiddly tab targeting stuff. Really nice. Basically, someone at Blizzard clearly plays this spec. So many little pain points and problems have been solved, they've clearly read the feedback. But of course there is a warning. If tuning breaks, build diversity dies, but at least right now, the fundamental design is kind of peak Frost Death Knight gameplay. Now there is a downside, which is what Blizzard took away, but first, Unholy. Unholy wins big with similar streamlining happening to the spec. Dark Transformation is now rolled into Apocalypse. Then Legion of Souls, which is the new Gripless A-Bomb limb, it now shares a node with Raise Abomination, so that's basically 2 buttons condensed for you, which is real nice. But here's the standout, and it really is cool, it's called Desecrate, and it works like this. You drop your Death and Decay. When you do, its button will change to Desecrate. Then when you press that button, your Death and Decay will explode, right? It explodes for massive AoE burst. Now you still get your full duration buffs, and it's also smart. Unwounded enemies will get wounds, but wounded enemies will have their wounds popped. And of course you will get a screen full of numbers. Okay. AoE improvements then, they really do stack up. I'll just kind of summarize them. There's an updated all will serve choice node for disease versus minion builds, and festering scythe procs for wound stacking. Those are welcome changes. And they've also addressed stat scaling. This will be quite nice. Festering wounds now benefit from crit through Scourge Strike, and there's also a new pet crit talent, and if all goes to plan, which is a bit of an if, that should at least make more gear be useful because it makes that stat more useful. Now, the other thing then is that pet talent, because it sits opposite a massive disease buff, and that does create 2 distinct talent paths. Pet Mastery or Plague Lord, I think those are the 2 core fantasies of Unholy, so that's quite good. Now, some cuts were made to enable this stuff, though I really doubt that Vile Contagion and Pestilence will be missed all that much. So, all in all, it is smoother to play, and doubly so in AoE. But I did say there was a loss, and this loss will be felt by both of these specs. Now we get to the bad news for DKs. It's pretty simple. No more slappy hands. I know you guys loved it. So Abomination Limb is gone. Blizzard's reasoning, well, they considered it to be a raid buff. And too strong of a raid buff. And their proof is all those immune mobs recently. Their solution, Death Grip, is now your raid buff. Hope you feel good about that. And this is kind of insane compared to other classes. Evokers get a raid buff, Bloodlust, they get Rescue, Monks get Mystic Touch and Ring of Peace. You get a single grip. It does feel a little bit rough, doesn't it? Now, Blizzard does claim that removing a bomb limb means fewer immune mobs going forward, so if they actually back that promise up with, actually doing that, that'll be good. But raid testing does kind of say otherwise, because Manaforge Omega has got basically 0 grippable targets. So that promise does kind of feel hollow. Midnight, of course, could be different, but in the meantime, you have lost incredible utility for your delves, your dungeons, your general gameplay. The only way you'll get raid priority now is if your damage is broken. So, yes, fantastic reworks for core design and fun factor. Your utility was kind of gutted, and that is a shame. Hunters are WoW's third most played class, and I think marksmanship is either a favorite of Blizzard or one that they've just struggled to get right, because one full rework was not enough. They're actually back for more, and they just keep honing this. And thankfully, they keep making it better. So here are the highlights. Your tier set bonus has become a permanent talent. Precise Shots now drops the global cooldown of Arcane and Multi-Shot, and that just makes your gameplay so much snappier. I'd certainly say that was one of my number one just things that I didn't like with the pacing of this spec. So that is an amazing change. Also, True Shot is getting reliable cooldown reduction instead of just pure RNG, and your Eagle fetches loot, which is awesome. And you can also ignore all of your AoE talents if you want to, and go in a pure single target direction. Plus, they've also done a whole bunch of housekeeping through the talent tree. They've cleared out pointless talents like Killing Mark and Quick Draw, but that's actually not all. Dark Ranger's mini rework, yeah, there's been another one. It makes Black Arrow explode in AoE by default. Proc Trick Shots, or Beast Cleave for Beast Mastery, which basically means that it replaces multi-shot when it's up, which is pretty dope. Then there's the other hero tree, Sentinel, which has got some love. Basically, Lunar Storm resets rapid fire, so you'll just be able to blast. Basically, this all feels good, and overall I would say marksmanship, compared to where it was last expansion or even at the start of this one, it really does feel terrific. I'm happy to say that Beast Mastery wins as well, and it's mostly through smart tweaks that add up. I'll certainly say, though, that the fantasy of this spec is really getting stronger, and the bleed build finally matches its fantasy. That's because Dire Beast is now passive, and that means that bleed damage can summon in wild beasts to attack. Now, these beasts will obey Kill Command and Bestial Wrath, which basically means you're summoning in a horde of beasts. Moving on to the changes though, Bloodshed got more bursty and procs Dire Beast more reliably. All told, 3 buttons disappear here. Dire Beast, which is passive, Barrage, which is removed, and Explosive Shot, which is now optional. And I'm actually fine seeing those things go, because it seems to mean that Beast Mastery is focusing more on beasts. I fundamentally like that. I definitely prefer it over, say, Barrage, which always felt like it slotted into the rotation a bit awkwardly. There's also a huge change then for Theory Crafters, and that is that Mastery now scales your damage, not just the damage of your pet. And this means that Black Arrow and, your other shots will hit properly hard. And the result is that Beast Mastery is elegant. Bloat has been simplified, but choice in damage profile and execution of the details does mean there's room for skill expression here. So overall, yeah, good job, Blizzard. Mages get minor tweaks this time around, but they are very welcome ones. So, Arcane and Frost both receive big mastery buffs to fix up their stat weights. Arcane gets some nice quality of life as well. Intuition lasts longer, and your arcane orbs now zoom way faster. Feels real good. Then Fire's also getting interesting changes where Meteor now hits the closest enemy for 40% extra damage. So basically, it's now rewarding good placement. So I kind of like that for skill expression. Now, Blizzard also moved some damage out of Ignite and back into your base spells so that they actually feel impactful to cast. I think it's a very important thing in game design, so it's nice to see here. And then there's this buff to your Hyperthermia, which really is lovely. Basically, your Pyros and your Flame Strengths ramp up big time during their spam window. Should feel pretty good to use. Moving on to Frost, well, you get a 15-second longer Blizzard with a higher cooldown, which essentially means it's more set and forget. I'd say that's quite nice, although maybe you won't be able to reposition it as much. But to that end, there is a big change and a casualty, and it's with Spellslinger. So Spellslinger's orbs now get cooldown reduction instead of random procs for much smoother gameplay. But Blizzard giveth, Blizzard taketh away, and we have lost Time Anomaly, so no more random procs of random buffs. And the replacement for it is a boring 6% main stat buff, which is barely worthy of being a capstone. So that does kinda blow, but look, overall, I do think this is a win. Oh boy, Shadow Priest is a tough one. They have struggled to get this right for a long time. That theme is continuing, but there are wins. So, lots of changes for a relatively small win is kind of the name of the game here. The biggest decision is that Mind Spike is dead. Blizzard have finally killed the Spike versus Flay choice, and that does free up massive design space. Mind Flay gets 50% more insanity generation to compensate for that, though the upgraded version of it did oddly get nerfed, so it's kind of just stronger baseline. Death Speaker then transformed completely. You've got no more Shadow or Death procs, where instead it will become a stronger execute tool that hits multiple times to trigger more effects. And I guess to translate a whole bunch of words, that should mean more reward for planning, less RNG. Shadow Crash then, well, it's kind of interesting. It gets 2 charges with a 15-second cooldown, but there is a catch. Blizzard giveth, Blizzard taketh away. It now only hits 6 targets, down from 8. Blizzard claims that this is for tuning, but to some people this will feel like they, are kind of creating problems they just solved. Okay, the real story here, though, is the capstones. So, Yasharj/Yasharaj now procs random haste buffs that become debuffs when they expire. Just cool enough flavor, weird gameplay, but the awesome one is N'Zoth. He really got a good deal here. So, it is now a trackable resource system where different abilities will generate horrific visions. At 50 and 100 stacks, you'll get a massive surge of damage and resources from a N'Zoth. So that's pretty cool, actually. It's much better than before. And there is one genuinely fun addition as well. Void Torrent becomes Void Volley for a very satisfying follow-up blast. Overall, though, as Ellipsis said in their review written for Wowhead, this might be, quote, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, which is to say that core problems do remain untouched, but at least the deck chairs look prettier. Okay, Demo Warlocks. You guys get 25% faster cast than some of your demons, but at a fairly heavy price, which is that Reign of Tyranny is now gone, so no more playing perfectly to get your 15 imps out. Your Tyrant will only buff 10 of them now, but at least your Tyrant is going to be stronger to make up for that. And that does make maxing out your damage actually a lot easier, especially when a fight makes you move. And overall, most people will find this to be smoother to play, but it is a hit to the hard part of the spec that some people did find to be fun. Now, there is some proper good news, though, like uncontroversial good news. A small talent shuffle makes Imp Mother cheaper to get for AoE builds. That will save you a vital talent point, which should be quite good. Then hero talent damage has been shuffled around quite a bit just to be better across all 3 specs. Okay, Affliction Warlocks, you guys finally get some major rebalancing here. There are gigantic buffs to Haunted and Stable Affliction that will let you do some serious single target and funnel damage, and the upshot of that is you're now much more playable solo and potentially a monster in raid. Potentially, because, balance in the real world is a thing, and as much as all this stuff could be buffed, if the relative tuning just means it's not worth picking, then, it won't be worth picking. Brewmaster Monk time. Finally, you guys get a little bit of love, but it does go a long way, so I suppose it is how you use it after all. Anyway, 3 new talents bolster their stagger. Celestial Infusion turns Celestial Brew into a massive Ignore Pain instead. It's the same shield, but only as a percentage of damage taken and over 16 seconds up from 8. That'll mean smoother damage intake and no wasted mitigation on healing. Then there's Nu Zhao's Resolve. That basically has been doubled down on. It makes Healing Sphere heal more and also heal over time instead. Then Zen State buffs stagger as your HP drops. So what you've essentially gotten these 3 is all new options, so you can basically build yourself more towards sustain or more towards like big burst survival. Then on top of that, Nu Zhao's has also been upgraded. He does a massive amount more damage, which is quite nice, and you can now control his healing and damage by purifying. He's also got a knock-up ability that you can activate as well, and finally, his cooldown reduction is a flat 30 seconds instead of being random. Then a talent shuffle on top of this does let you make a few better builds. It still has fighting priorities in AoE as one example, plus loads of talents that will probably need reworks eventually to make any sense, but thankfully, those are small enough problems, and the good news is Brewmaster is now more versatile, more playable, and you can build it in, I think, slightly better directions. Well, by now I hope you know how this works. I've just talked about all the major winners, though there are a few minor ones. Specs like Holy Paladin, Ret, and Mistweaver get minor, but welcome little touch-ups. But, well, it's time for the losers. It only goes downhill from here. Not to give you whiplash, but Prot Warriors actually got a huge stack of improvements. They got great buffs to Tough as Nails and Revenge talents. Blizzard merged a ton of other talents to save you talent points. Challenging Shout is baseline as well, and Ravager has got a passive option to save you a keybind. Hell, Execute does more damage, it can now even hit 3 targets. They even shuffled around the tree so that more builds are viable. But you're not a winner. I know, weird. The reason why is you've lost Spell Block. Yeah. Sorry to say it. And the replacements are honestly dire. First though, Blizzard's reasoning. They say that Spell Block was inconsistent, where it let you block spells but only certain ones. The upshot of this was of course consulting a community spreadsheet that doesn't exist within the game. Obviously that's a problem, but sadly Blizzard didn't really respect how strong it was, so their replacements are honestly quite weak. So here's what you can choose. A 10% buff to spell Reflection, or an 8% chance to only take half damage from a magic hit. Yeah, 8% chance. That's not really reliable. That doesn't make me feel like I'm actively tanking. And neither of these do what Spellblock did. Give you reliable, 30 seconds of magic defense. So it's kind of ass. And now it basically means that Prot has got a huge weakness opened up. Now, of course, it is still viable in 99% of content, so for lots of players, it is a winner and it'll be a better spec. But after a lot of feedback ignoring and a bit of a tone-deaf change here, I can't call it a winner. Oh, Discipline Priest, the saga of my old main, continues. So Disc Priests lost their secret weapon, mana. Basically, healing efficiently with your mana pool is key to most healers, but Discipline was a little bit different. Learning how to pump fast enough was basically their challenge. And enter some, quote, targeted adjustments. So Power Word Shield, Radiance, and Flash now cost a whole bunch more. So if you're applying, say, Atonement or Raw Healing too much, you will eventually run out of mana. Now in a way you could say this shouldn't be a huge problem, but what it does do is punish sloppy play that you used to get away with, which, I mean, fundamentally should be fine, but it's Discipline Priest. It's a pretty high, skill floor thing anyway. I don't really know if this was needed. Rogues! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You guys haven't really had a great time for a while now. But anyway, I've got a little smidge of good news. Killing Spree has finally been fixed. It's now a 3-minute cooldown with some oomph. It doesn't send your camera haywire, and Cold Blood now goes on cooldown right when you press it. And now for the bad news. That's it. Your hero talents are still a mess. Core gameplay concerns across all 3 specs have just gone unfixed again, and that means overall unfixed for far too long, and basically your class is just not really built for playing modern World of Warcraft. Now you still can play it. Assassination is still a functional spec, it's not completely dead. But the data does show that rogues are going extinct. Across Raider.io and Warcraft logs, you can just see that it has got tiny amounts of parses. Not a lot of people are playing rogue. I think it's pretty obvious why. And that's it. There are some great changes here. There are some mind-boggling negatives, but I actually don't think they're that mind-boggling because Midnight is about to happen, and I have to imagine for the likes of Rogue, they basically just thought, why would we put a whole bunch of work in for patch 11.2 when we have a new expansion that's going to be coming? I have to imagine that new expansion will change a bunch of things, and that probably means Rogue will be getting a proper look in, which they absolutely deserve. Of course, the big question, though, is what will Midnight look like for classes? We kind of are due a new class to start. Maybe it's Tinker, maybe it's something else. Hero talents, maybe they'll be expanded, or with Ian's new philosophy of being sort of okay throwing away systems sometimes, maybe they'll be replaced. Anyway, at least we don't have to wait too long to find out, and an even shorter time away, perhaps, is the hinted 3rd Demon Hunter spec. We actually could be seeing an announcement in the coming days, just like Blizzard did with Ogvoker before it went on PTR, because patch 11.2.5 will be on the PTR fairly soon. And as it turns out, there's another thing that does appear to be coming sooner than we thought. It's player housing. Now, it was a theory whenever we made this video talking about all the new player housing stuff. Turns out though, well, it's a pre-order bonus for midnight. So yeah, go watch that video next. You learn about player housing. I'll see you over there.